and I'll be presenting my paper on economic models of conflict applied to police and Taliban fighters in the Zhari district of Kandahar, Afghanistan in the summer of 2009. Quick overview of my presentation. I'll go over the methodology, how I collected my data, quick overview of the theories of conflict. There's a lot of math in these, and I'm going to glaze over really quick and just talk about the variables that I'll be manipulating. And an expansion, how I expanded the production and conflict model for a more effective analysis of the Zhari district. This is the Zhari district of Kandahar, Afghanistan. It's to the west of Kandahar city. It's the Armgrab River that makes up the south border of it. To the north is Ring Road South. It's I think about 8 kilometers by 30 kilometers or something. It's a small little swath of land. The chief exports are grapes. They are not like the grape fields you see here, the big earthen structures with a series of wadis, all very exciting if you're into agriculture. Goats, goats are the staple livestock, and opium or poppies, which is the big cash crop. I was there as a police mentor. There's about 15 Americans. We trained the police in different aspects of combat. I was a medic, so I trained them how to do first aid stuff. The police come from different backgrounds. Some grew up in the area, some have come from other areas and transferred into the district. Some joined the police because they just needed a job. Some joined the police because they hate the Taliban from way back, or they hate them now. So you've got a lot of different background in the police. Like I said, we train them in different aspects of how to conduct checkpoints, conduct first aid, just different aspects of warfare. All my methodology, I collected my data from having conversations on patrols with the police through an interpreter, or at security halts we'd have a chance to stop and talk to village elders or other people in the area, all males obviously, but or if you're not familiar with the culture, you can't talk to females. Regardless of their personal politics, elders are they're very hospitable. They'll always sit down. They'll have tea. Anybody who wants to listen to them, they're more than happy to talk about anything you want to talk about. And so yeah, I had an opportunity to talk to them personally, or while I was doing other stuff, I'd overhear the Canadian military intelligence also would always be asking them, you know, this, that, how you doing, what's going on, sort of things. Some of the kids. This is the overview of production and conflict model of conflict. The general idea here is that each side has a set number of resources that they can divide between their productive efforts E, fighting efforts F. Maximize income, and they draw a lot of industrial organization if you're familiar with that kind of stuff, but the idea is to maximize income of one depends on distributive share, which is the P value, which is the fighting effort of your side based on the fighting effort of the other side. There is a response to this fighting effort of the other side, times the total amount of income, which is a function of your productive effort given the other side's productive effort. The first variable I'm going to talk about is mass effect. The mass effect variable is sometimes called, or the decisiveness variable, it's called K. The general idea is it goes up for things that will make the conflict more decisive. Anything that's going to make the conflict more decisive will make K increase. Things that lower or make the conflict less decisive will decrease K. And here are some examples you can read through of things that increase and decrease K in general. But as opposed to actually getting into the math, I'm going to do a graphic demonstration of what the effect of a decrease in K is. What we're taking from here is 0.04, 0.02. These are both relatively low values of K. But as you see, it shifts towards the origin. And if you can see these little numbers here, what basically just happened is we have two equally matched sides, and they've both gone from devoting about 75 to 80 of their 100 resources on fighting effort to now only 50 F units, because the conflict's less decisive. It's not as useful to continue fighting because you can't get as much income out of it. The complementary index is parameter S. It's measured the synergy between the two contestants. It's increased by factors that increase trade. This model can be generally applied to anything from litigation between parties, family feuds, labor union strikes, international conflict. So there's a lot of times synergy or dyssynergy between, or is negative synergy? Well, some sort of synergy between the two parties. 1 equals no synergy. just to give a quick overview of how this works, this is an increase in synergy, and you can see it narrows. These reaction curves is what these are, what we're looking at, and I'll get into what those are more in a minute. But the idea is that increasing the synergy between the two parties by itself does not necessarily change or shift the equilibrium amount of conflict or an equilibrium amount of fighting or effort, resources devoted by both sides to conflict. Hirschleifer, who's done most of the work on the production and conflict model, other people have added to it as time has gone on, but later on in his work he introduces, his earlier constant success function is what CSF stands for. Ratio models were used earlier. He then moved in and he showed different constant success functions. They're more realistically modeled contests in which you can read, but he based this on studying different battles from World War II all the way through the Arab-Israeli conflicts, another number of conflicts. So suffice to say that the different CSF functions are more appropriate to these kind of contests. I didn't throw the math up there because it would be the alphabet divided by the other half the alphabet times the Greek alphabet. I'm not going to explain it all. This is a more graphic illustration of why K is more appropriate, or how K works. As you increase your value of K from 0.03 to 0.3 there, what this graph is showing is given 100 resources, alright, I'm just going to say this. The reason difference is more appropriate is because the marginal returns to the loser increase up to the point that you devote an equal number of resources as the opponents, and after you cross that point, you're probably the winner. Now you have decreasing marginal returns. Thus, if you've already outnumbered your opponent and won the fight, you don't need to throw another 200 guys in there. That's not going to help you gain any more win count if you've totally decimated them. The rent-seeking model was developed by Tulloch in the early 80s through a number of papers. This is his first one. He models conflict as a lottery. In that lottery, the conflict can either be described as one of three zones. Zone 1 is a positive-sum game. The amount of the prize is worth more than the individual buy-ins of each of the contestants. In Zone 2, each individual contestant, or the sum of all the buy-ins is worth more than the prize, but the prize is worth more than each individual's buy-in. And in Zone 3, each individual has a higher buy-in than the actual amount of the prize. Okay, my application of the product and conflict model to the Zhari. For my application, I've set parameter S to equal 1 because the A and P do not trade. There is no synergy. I had some anecdotal evidence of this, but I'm going to try to keep it short. I want to get home. Parameter K, there could be different ways to go with this. Reasons to hire parameter K are there's a high cost of the loser. Vendettas, these guys have been fighting for a long, long time. Before it was the Taliban and the police, they were the pro-Soviets and the anti-Soviets, and things have been going on for a long time. There's a lot of payback and retribution that goes to the loser. There's also high casualty producing weapons. That's machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, things that do a lot of damage to a lot of people. The reason I offset these is there is a low payoff to the victor in terms of income, other than filling some sort of grudge. There's also the way these weapons are employed. The spray and pray is a lot of shoot from the hip, or just shoot a lot of rounds but not take shots. The standoff distance, the effective range of most of these weapons is about 400 meters to a kilometer. You got a lot of times that guys are like 1.5 kilometers away from each other just shooting for like 3 hours at a time, and it doesn't really result in much. It's indecisive. Also, terrain favors the defense, which lowers decisiveness, parameter K. This is a picture of an AMP checkpoint that's 4 meters thick of HESCO concrete and gravel.